That's quite sad. Okay, so in today's video, we're gonna be talking about this TikTok tablet I got off the TikTok shop for $50. Now, this tablet, is it worth $50? We'll get into this stuff. And if I had to give it a guess, they probably make this thing for like $15 because you can literally buy this tablet from like a million different companies, the same design, the same everything. So this is just like a really cheap tablet that they sell for sometimes up to $100 on the TikTok shop. As you saw with that Geekbench score, it is really low. Now, if you don't know what Geekbench is, it tests the processor, and the main number I personally focus on is the single core, which is that number right there, and as you can see, it's 177. Now, what does that mean? That means it's really bad. Like the iPhone 5S, which came out in 2013, scores around what that does. And the Samsung S6, Samsung S7, which came out like 8 to 9 years ago, also scores what that scores. My iPhone 13 scores like 2200 right there, 2000, over 2000 right there, and this thing is scoring 170. The cheapest Samsung phone you can buy now scores around 500 right there, which is not that bad, but if it's under 500, it's pretty bad. So 170, horrible. That is horrible. But even though it's scoring really bad, it's actually not that slow. And the reasoning behind that is because it's running Google's UI, which is default Android, which is actually super duper smooth. If this was on like Samsung's UI, I guess you could say, Galaxy, whatever, One UI, this thing would definitely be like the laggiest tablet ever made. But since it's on Google's UI, it's low-key getting saved. And as you can see, we're just swiping through and it's not lagging. Look at that. So if you're thinking about buying this tablet, I would recommend it under like $55, under 60, I guess. If it's over 60, just buy like a used iPad 6th generation, spend the extra money. If you can afford it, I would go up to $150 and buy a used Samsung A9 Plus. But under $60, I guess, is a good tablet. I guess on the TikTok shop, it doesn't really tell you the specs on this thing, and if they were to put the specs on there, it's most likely going to be lying and saying like this thing has like a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 or some stupid thing. So I also downloaded this other app besides Geekbench 6 called DevCheck, so we can check out all the stuff about this phone, like the GPU and stuff. And as you can see, it's running the Mali G52. And before I did the Geekbench 6 score, I tried searching that up on Geekbench, and they just didn't show up anything. So I had to download Geekbench and actually test the tablet instead of going through Geekbench website and seeing if it was already tested. So that's the processor. I'm gonna scroll through, mention the stuff, some of the stuff I know and some of the stuff I don't know. Like there's some weird stuff on here that I don't like. Wide color game, I don't know what that means. But anywho, this thing is obviously gonna be a 60 hertz refresh rate. The aspect ratio is 16 by 10, which is really good, which is way better than what iPads have it at, which is like 4:3 or something like that. Because obviously landscape is better for watching content, which is the main reason you're going to get a tablet, right? Screen resolution is 800 by 1280 or 1280 by 800. Now the second number is 800, and that is a little bit better than HD, which is 720, but you can definitely pixel peep. I don't know if it'll catch it on camera, but if you put your face up to this, you'll definitely be able to see the pixels. Speaking of the screen, while we're at it, it doesn't tell you the max brightness of the thing, but if I had to guess, I would say probably around 200, 300 peak nit brightness. iPhone 13 is around 800 nits brightness. The newest iPhone is like over 2000 peak nit brightness. The Apple Watch Ultra 2 is 3000 peak nit brightness. So once again, the higher the better, just like it was with a single core processing scores on Geekbench. So the higher the better with the brightness, also with the resolution, obviously. The screen PPI is 149, which is really bad. My iPhone 13 is around 400, so there's that. The RAM is 4 gigabytes, which is actually really good and quite impressive. 64 gigabytes of storage, which is actually not bad. You could probably get these things as low as 16, maybe even 8 gigabytes of storage. I doubt 8, but probably around 16, 32 is the lowest they get, and I guess this is mid-range, because 64 gigabytes is not bad. I would be fine with that on my iPad. Let's keep scrolling. You have all these USB ports on the side, which is kind of weird. This thing has a lot of ports. On the bottom, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it does not have anything, but on the left side, you get all these ports. You get volume rocker, the power button, you get, I guess, a microphone, you get USB-C, you get whatever this is. This might be like a SIM card slot, or it doesn't tell me what it is. And the box that this thing came with also doesn't tell me, so I have no idea what that is. And we have a headphone jack at the top, which is good to see. Then on the back, I guess, since we're just covering the hardware of this phone, There's 2 speakers on the back. Now, they get the job done. They're not a 10 out of 10 with the speakers. They're like a solid 4 out of 10. The camera is a 5 megapixel camera. It's really, really bad. Then on the front, we have a 1 megapixel, 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera. Let's unlock it here and show you the camera quality. So, I'm pretty sure I ended up having to download like a camera app, which is funny as hell. As you can see, this is what we're working with. I don't want to show my face here, but it gets the job done. It's actually not that bad of a camera. I don't really know if the rear camera is even, or is like the flip option. So the rear camera could end up being a fake camera because there's no like flip option. So I don't really know how to figure that out. That's a little confusing. Now that we're done talking about the hardware on this tablet, let's talk about gaming. We already talked about content watching. It gets the job done. You won't have any complaints about watching content on this thing. It'll be able to load everything perfectly fine. I mean, it might be a tiny bit slow, but to be expected, right? For playing Roblox, you can play decent games on it, but it's really kind of on the struggle bus depending on the game you want to play. If you play like light Roblox games, okay, cool, you'll get the job done. Or if you play like a different game like Block Puzzle, okay, you'll be able to play that. But if you're trying to do heavier gaming stuff for some reason on this tablet, it's not getting the job done. It's not. So if you want a better gaming device, you're really gonna have to buy like a used iPad or a Samsung A9 Plus. Spend the extra money if you can, of course. Go back to the DevCheck app to see what else we can discover on this thing or talk about on this thing. Android 13. That is really good. The newest version of Android is 15. It literally just came out, but Android 13 and 14 and 15, they literally look the same. There's some changes, obviously, but they look the same. So you shouldn't be worrying about the Android version if you for some reason are. Android 13 is really, really good to see. The battery life on this thing, it's at 90% right now. I ran the Geekbench and I only went down like 2-ish, 3-ish%. So the battery on this thing is really good. That's because it has a big battery, a really bad processor, which is not going to use that much battery, and a really bad screen, which is not going to take up that much battery because it's just a bad screen with low pixel density and 60 hertz and doesn't get that bright, all that stuff. And it's on dark mode, which probably is helping it out too. It has a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and it says 3 days left of battery. And I believe it if you're not going to be on it 24/7. I believe this thing can probably get you maybe a week if you're not going to be on it 24/7 and you're just going to go on it for like an hour a day to scroll on CNN or Fox News or something like that. The Wi-Fi, y'all can go over this stuff. You can pause the video if you want to look at this stuff. I don't really understand or know what that means because it's just Wi-Fi, bro. If the Wi-Fi works, it works. That's what I think. As you can see, it's a 1.9 megapixel front-facing camera. It can film up to 720p 30 frames per second. So the camera gets the job done. It's not a huge issue. You're not really buying an iPad to get for like the camera. You just, long as it works, right? So yeah, the camera works. This tablet in general works, surprisingly, right? It's kind of impressive that there are smaller bezels than there are in like an iPad 9th generation. But honestly, under $60, once again, I would recommend this tablet. If you're paying over $60, just really buy something used. It's either go really cheap or more on the expensive side, like over $100. I wouldn't really spend $80 on like an A7 Lite. This tablet is impressive. It doesn't really lag, but I mean, it doesn't really lag when you're like scrolling like this, but don't expect the smoothest experience. I'll load YouTube for y'all here so we can just check it out and test the scrolling speed. As you can see, it's not like, it's getting the job done. I mean, obviously, I guess it can lag here and there, but it's getting the job done, which is all you need. That's all you need. So if you want to buy this for your kid or grandma or yourself, go for it. Low-key, just go for it. It gets the job done. I mean, okay, there's a little lag there, but to be expected, right? It's actually really good for $50, the amount of no lag, I guess you could say, on this tablet. I recommend this tablet for under $60.